So we're going to get a model up and running in Numerus Model Builder. Let's see. So let's make a logistic model, so a single population model. Most of what we want is going to be in this components menu, so let's bring that up. We need our state variable, our population size, so we click and drag that into our model window, and we type in our name, so n. We are going to have a flow, so the population size n is going to change, and that means there's a flow needed, a rate of change. And we're going to call that flow dn by dt, so dn underscore dt, doesn't matter what you call it. We need to click one end of that flow to the population box n. And maybe we tidy this up a bit. Okay, now we need to enter the equation for dn by dt. So here we can do it in the value window. So let's just type in, let's start off with specified values for the intrinsic growth constant and the carrying capacity. So for example, 0.5 times n times 1 minus n over 20. And let's make this what they call a uniflow. Well, it doesn't make any difference. It's called a uniflow. And it's going to be a flow out to n. So we need to change that to nothing and change this one to flow out to n. That means look at the way the arrow points on this diagram. dn by dt is going to cause n to increase. So we have a plus in front of our dn by dt equation, so we need to have that as an arrow flowing into n. So this is just in from, it has to be blank, and the out to has to say n. The other thing we need to do here is specify an initial value for n. So n is a state variable, that's what's called a stock in the language of Numerus Model Builder. And let's set an initial value for n of 0.1. The other thing we have to do is some stuff over here. This is telling Numerus Model Builder how it's going to integrate the differential equation numerically. So we change this box to RK4. We'll talk about that later in the semester. And we set dt to 0.01. Depending on the model, those numbers and that method might change, but for now that does us. What else do we need to do? Well, we want to have some output, so we want to do displays and controls, and we can drag a line graph onto the thing, and we're just going to call that our plot. And then we click on that to bring it up, and we have to tell Numerus Model Builder what we want to plot. So for example, we want to plot n against time, so we need to click the plus here just below this little table, and we need to select n to plot, and I think that's all we want to do. One other thing we might want to do is include a table. A table that would allow us to see the data as well, the information that we create. So we can just select n in there. I think that's what we want to do. And then we can save this as something or other, whatever we want to call it. Put it on the desktop. Logistic example. And then to run the model, we click on Launch. And in a second or two, a new window should appear with our plot of n against time. There's our table. And if we click on Run, we see that Numerus has run the logistic growth model. We see one of these S-shaped curves with which we're familiar. We see the table here of the values of time and the n values. So for example, if we wanted to save our output to use it in some other program like in Excel, we can click here on File and do Save Data As. And that's a very simple example of getting Numerus Model Builder up and running. Okay, let's do something a little bit more sophisticated. Let's say we want to change the values of little r, capital K, and the initial value of n sub 0. What we can do is we can drag out from this Displays and Controls window a slider, and let's call this first one R. So enter R and then hit enter. Another slider for capital K, hit enter. Another slider for initial value of n underscore 0, hit enter. Let's click on the R slider. We can choose the range for our slider. So let's go from 0 to 5. And in steps of, I don't know, 0 to 5. And we can set an initial value for the slider. We can do a similar thing for K. So let's say we have K going from 0 to 100, maybe in steps of 0.5. And we'll choose an initial value for that slider value of 20. And N0, let's say again, go from 0 to, let's say, 100 in steps of 0.1. And we'll take an initial value of, I don't know, 0.5. And so now we have our 3 sliders. But now, of course, we need to update our differential equation to use the values that come from that slider. So we replace our plumbed in value of 0.5 for little r by the symbol little r. We replace that 20 by capital K. Notice how the arrows appear on the plot. This is Numerus telling us that the flow dn by dt depends on the values of r and k. Notice we have an arrow here also saying that dn by dt depends on the value of n. And now let's hook up our n0 slider by replacing our plumbed in initial value by n0. And again, that arrow appears. And then let's save our file again. Logistic example. And then let's launch it. And again, our window comes up. And now we have sliders that can set the values of little r, capital K, and n sub 0. So let's run. There's our plot. Let's change the value of K. Well, if we want it to update, we have to hit run again. And now notice that the population goes up to the new value of K, 39, rather than the previous value of K. And if we want the graph to replot and the differential equation to automatically be rerun and the graph be replot, we can actually click on this auto thing. So every time we change the slider, the differential equation will automatically rerun. So let's increase the value of n sub 0, and we see the differential equation rerun. And apart from the fact that we're using a differential equation with only one state variable, that's pretty much all we're going to be using, all we're going to be doing in Numerus Model Builder, at least for a while.